But then I'm going to drift away from that and talk about some concrete expressions historically about how people of deep spiritual faith have thought about social engagement, and give you three models for what that has looked like, and give you an example for each model. Because I think sometimes, I really like the word spirituality. I think it's a really important word. I don't always know what it means, because it's kind of a word that can be up for a lot of interpretation, and that's a really good thing. But I think sometimes it helps to give a bit of a concretized definition of it, to get our minds around what it could look like, especially in engagement with service. So I'm gonna do that. So let's just return to the question that you all were asking for a minute. Just throw out to me reasons why people engage in service. Just pop them out. You all have thought about this for a long time, so these should be on the tip of your tongue. Just kind of pop them out.
To help others?
To help others. Great.
Personal fulfillment.
Personal fulfillment. Absolutely. A sense of fulfillment is good. Somebody else.
To give back.
To give back. Make a difference. To give back. To feel like you're contributing to something beyond. Good. Others.
Make substantial changes.
Make substantial changes. Exactly. So it's not a tokenism, but it's making a significant difference in either a system or an individual life. Absolutely. Great.
To learn.
To learn. For sure. Education. It's part of personal growth. Learning experience. Perfect. Others.
Specific issue they believe in.
Yeah, a particular passion around a particular kind of issue that you feel attracted to. Absolutely. Really good. Any others? Those are all great. Terrific.
Mutual understanding.
Mutual understanding. To grow not only individually, but somebody else who might be different. Now you grow together, you learn more about one another in the process of exchange. That's great. Yeah. Any others? Those are great. How many for you have a sense that that sort of a spirituality or a faith is part of the reason why you engage in giving back or engage in service with others? Yeah, there are a few hands. There's some nods. I see kind of eyes. I want to give you three different models of social engagement along this line that faith communities have taken part in historically, and then give you an example of each model. And I wonder, as I give you these models, if you, and by the way, I want to say from the beginning, I don't suggest that any one of these three is better than the other. So it's not one of those, I'm going to tell you the first two and then tell you what I really believe, right? I mean, I think all three are really good models for engagement. But I think they're all different. And I wonder, as I go through these, if you might think about which model speaks more closely, more truly to who you are and to where you are. And then at the end, I want to come back and have a conversation about that. So the first model is what I call working for. This is a professional model, working for. It's a little bit like a doctor or a lawyer, a teacher in some sense, somebody who has skills, education, experience, and another person who needs that skill, education, or experience. And either one goes to the other and says, okay, I'm in need of legal help. You are an attorney, you're doing pro bono work, and you're going to help me figure out what this tax code means so I can file my taxes, right? That's a great way of service. It's somebody who's offering legal aid, a skill that they have, to somebody who needs it, but it's a kind of professional exchange. Only somebody who's trained in the legal profession can really do that well. That's a working for model. And somebody who modeled this really well is a guy named Albert Schweitzer. Has anybody heard of that name, Albert Schweitzer? By any chance? No. Well, I should have come up with somebody you all would know. Albert Schweitzer in the 1960s was a physician at Harvard who had this plum Ivy League job, and he moved to East Africa and set up a medical clinic in East Africa. Because he deeply believed that healthcare was important, and he wanted to give people who didn't have access to healthcare opportunities for healthcare. And he did it because he was a trained physician who could offer skills to satisfy a need. He had the skills to help people get better. People needed those skills in order to be better. All right, Albert Schweitzer. Second model is working with. And this is much more of a community-centered model. The working with model is much more of the social worker model, or the community organizer, who goes into a community and says, not rather, okay, I have some skills that you all need, but rather, what are the needs in this community? where are the gifts that this community has together, and how can we put gifts and needs together in order to satisfy and solve whatever problems or issues might be present in this community. So that's what a social worker might do, to rally around a family or an individual or a community and say, how can we together solve this problem? It's a beautiful model. It's a working with, where we gather all the resources of a community. A great example of this model in the history of social change in the United States that originated in a deep spiritual well or faith commitment was the Civil Rights Movement. This is MLK in some sense, inspiring a community to come together and say, what are the needs, where are the skills, how do we overcome that? And it's a community's work, not the work of an individual. The next example that I want to offer that I think it really originates can be seen through faith commitments, which is called being with. And being with is more difficult to describe. I think working for and working with, we can kind of get our minds around. But being with is saying, not I'm a professional and I have skills to offer, i.e. working with. Not there's a problem to be solved within our community, how do we all come together and solve that problem? But being with says, all I have is myself to offer. And what I do is I try to come into a situation and simply be there without the pressure to have to fix it or to make it go away or to solve the problem, but be willing to stand in the midst of whatever that issue is, whatever that pain is, whatever that hurt is, and have the courage to be in the midst of it without having the pressure to have to make it go away. It's a beautiful example of a service, a kind of social engagement that sometimes takes more courage than the other two in some ways. So an example of this that came out of a spiritual movement is hospice. You'll know what hospice is. Hospice is saying it's a medical response to a situation that can't be fixed. It's a service to a family or to a dying person that says, we can't make this person better, but as a community we can be with them and give them a dignified death. And that's what we offer, is our very presence. And that's a beautiful thing, being with. But it's very, very hard to do, and it's hard to figure out how to do well, because sometimes it's not quite as clear as the other two. And it may be, of course, that there are elements of all three of these models that kind of interact with one another. You know, it's not as if they're kind of red, black, and yellow, totally separate, but they probably cross-pollinate a little bit. Those are the three models that I think the faith community has helped inspire. Working for, professional exchange; working with, a community gathering together, Habitat for Humanity; being with, hospice, being present in the midst of something that cannot be fixed, but having the courage to be there anyway. Let me stop there. I want to see what you all think about